Good evening. I'd like to bring this planning board meeting of November 20th, 2023, the Southern Shores Planning Board. If you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Anyone have any changes, objections to tonight's agenda? None seen? No.
I'll make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Tony. Second, Ed, thank you. Item 4 is approval of the minutes of the November 1st, 2023 closed session. Did you all happen to get a look at those minutes?
Yes.
Everybody did? Okay. I did as well. So I would take a motion to approve those minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Jan, thank you. I'll second. Thank you. All in favor of that, raise your hand. Aye. Opposed? None. Okay. Public comment. Before we get started here, I'm going to read a brief statement. As is customary, we will have public comment prior to and after our business tonight. There's a sign-up sheet in the back for each. We will use a 3-minute time limit per speaker. This is not a question and answer town hall style meeting. Please state your name and address when you come to the podium and direct all your comments to the planning board members. Any personal attacks or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated and could be cause for removal. Okay, we got that sign-up sheet. Thank you, Wes. All right. First speaker is Matt Huban, 110 Landing Trail.
Hi, my name is Matt Huban. I live at 110 Landing Trail and the designated representative of Southern Shores Landing. This evening, I want to reiterate our concern regarding the wastewater treatment plant that services our community. Since the plant was built, its function has been to service the residents of Southern Shores Landing. When the applicant purchased the plant in 2018, they knew the plant was in total disrepair and operating under emergency status. Instead of making the plant fully operational, they just made emergency repairs to keep the toilets flushing. They had no desire to repair the plant for the residents of Southern Shores Landing because there was no benefit to them. Since they've owned the plant, our community has continually dealt with sewage smells. Multiple times the system has failed and the fluid would run out of the manhole covers and flow down Landing Trail. And of course, the discharge of effluent going straight into the retention pond, causing it to be full of algae, adding to the smell around our community. It wasn't until last year they replaced one of the 2 tanks, but only to benefit them as they are trying to get this project passed. The residents of Southern Shores Landing deserve a fully functioning sewer plant before they add thousands of gallons a day of additional sewage from this proposed development. We are tired of dealing with a sewer plant that is not working as intended, and to make matters worse, they filed for a rate increase that will more than double our current monthly sewer rate. Again, they want to more than double our sewer rate for a plant that is not fully functioning. They've had years to fix the plant but refused because it did not benefit them. Now they want our community to help pay for repairs so they can build their new project. They keep saying how they want to be good neighbors. I don't think anyone would say that they're being a good neighbor. Before this permit process was started, the applicant had every opportunity to develop a site plan to build on the existing cleared area of their lot. Did they reach out to our community to get feedback on the site plan? No, they did not. In January, our community was given a site plan that showed them building right up to our property line with little to no buffer. They will cut down almost all the existing trees that are currently between our properties. Tonight, they're going to show a beautiful rendering on how they're going to be a good neighbor by building a retaining wall and leaving a 20-foot buffer with little to no vegetation to separate our properties. So they can build a 43-foot tall building that towers over our houses. A good neighbor? I don't think so. We support all the conditions set forth in the town staff report, especially the 50-foot setback, and to preserve the existing natural vegetative buffer for both Southern Shores Landing and All Saints Episcopal Church. We strongly encourage the planning board to request a fully functioning sewer plant as it was designed before approving any development. I sincerely hope the planning board will address all the above concerns, the concerns of Southern Shores residents, and to impose all the conditions recommended by the staff, as well as any others the board sees fit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eubank. Next speaker is Andy Kinney.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Andy Keeney of 6008 Currituck Road. I'm a retired attorney. I have 35 years of land use experience and zoning experience. In the Outer Banks, I've worked on such projects and applications such as Belk's, Kmart, Dunkin' Donuts, Surf Shop in downtown Duck, Monterey Shores. I actually represented the prior buyer of this subject property. It's basically the gateway to Southern Shores. As you drive across the bridge, this is what you will see. I can see the grandkids in the car going, "Mommy, Daddy, oh my, what happened to Southern Shores?" This project is going to be massive. It's rife with issues. It will potentially add to cut-through traffic. If there's a light put in, and there's got to be, cars will line up and say, "Oh, now I can get in line to turn left on Dogwood Trail." You should sit back and decide. We're not going to go ahead and add more and more conditions. We should deny this and tell them to resubmit. How can you deny it? First of all, two reasons in a matter of time. One, you can deny it because the requirements of the land use plan have not been met, and this is a service of basis of your denial. Page 2 of your staff report specifically says the subject property is adjacent to properties that are identified in the land use plan as residential. The town's land use plan contains the following goal, policies, and action items that are applicable to the application. Goal number 2, protect, enhance, and support land uses that are compatible with surrounding land uses and maintain the existing character of Southern Shores. Clearly, this land use plan for residential zoning and residential use, the goal has not been accomplished. Second reason, traffic will be a disaster. Have you read the application? Yes, you've read it time and time again. And who knows, are they changing it again tonight? You've got over 200 parking spaces. You've got a comment about residential use, commercial use, retail, residents, renters, customers, probably a Saga sales office. What about all the service vehicles for that? Hundreds and hundreds of cars, not only a daily basis, but a weekend. What are we going to do? What about if there's a fire, a major disaster, a hazmat, or something that happened in Maui with out of control and people can't get access in or out of the site? Thousands are going to go ahead and be at risk. Will be on national news. The answer for staff is, well, it's proposed now, you can exit the east side of Landing Trail. Thank you for your time. I will not ask for additional time. I want to tell you that I encourage you to recommend denial, and I thank you for all that you do for the town of Southern Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Kenny. Next speaker is John Vermilye. I'm sorry if I messed that word up.
Hi, my name is John Vermeulen, and I live at 2061 Creek Road. So I face onto the creek. I've been here 25 years in that house on the creek. And when we started it 25 years ago, several of us had at least 15 feet of vegetation that was into the creek. Besides, we had bulkheads behind that, of course. And that is all gone now, just from the current boat traffic. And if they put 36 slips in there and all the boats come in and go out, we're going to be behind those bulkheads. We're going to be rip-rapping. We're going to be doing all kinds of things to make up for that additional traffic that's in there. There is not 36 people between my house and the front gate of Martins Point. So this will more than double the boat traffic if they are allowed to go ahead with this. So I guess my recommendation is that you turn it down and that something more traditional, and I know that there's an issue about the commercial side of this, but something more traditional in single-family home, not three-story high-rises or three-story buildings even, be allowed to be put in that area. And then the whole issue that you've already heard about the commitments that have not been filled by the contractor who's trying to get this handled and the owner of it currently. So thank you very much for your time, and hopefully you'll turn it down. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vermillion. Next speaker is Elizabeth Ryan.
Hi.
Good evening.
Again. My name is Elizabeth Ryan. I live at 1101 Colleton Avenue in Kitty Hawk, just adjacent from the property. I've been here the last 3 months, as you all know, and I've asked about traffic studies, environmental impacts, parking issues, water pollution, and so forth. But I think you all already know all of that. We appreciate everything that you all have done thus far, making sure that this plan has the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Every month, my husband asks me before I come here, what are you going to say? Tonight, I jokingly said, I'm going to filibuster until I'm not going to let them make a decision. All I can ask of you tonight is that you do everything in your power to stop this monstrosity from being built. Please recommend denial. Please save what little property is left on this beach. If not for us, do it for our children and our grandchildren and the generations to come. Thank you so much for all of your time and efforts. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Ryan. Next speaker is Mike Mangum.
Hi, I'm Mike Mangum. I live on 8 Foxwood Circle in Southern Shores Landing, and I know I've been up here and talked about the same thing, but I'm going to reiterate it one more time, and there may have been a change or may have been something, but I know that if we let them turn in and go down Landing Road, we're going to have a problem in our neighborhood because it's one way, and they need to come up with a solution that lets them out but not in. They could let them come in from the road, but not from the complex itself. Any rate, I haven't seen anything on that, but I know that it's a concern of ours and has been from day one. We knew they were going to develop this at some point in time, but I had no idea they were going to put how much stuff they were going to put there and how potentially we have people come through there now and they'll go the wrong way just to get they're going through a beach cottage. and they go the wrong way. So I'm just saying, we're going to have it even worse if you start letting them load out through our development. And the other thing is, Matt touched on very well, better than I could, about the septic system. The sprinkler system hadn't worked for 10 years, so I'm guessing it hasn't been proper for more than that. And I don't know how they fix that, and I don't know where they would put their infiltration, because they hardly have any land left over there. The other thing is, they're filling this lot up so much. I think about, if there's dogs over there and stuff like that, where are those dogs going to go to the bathroom? Probably on our house, over by our house, I'm guessing. I don't know. But at any rate, I hope that y'all see fit to put more restraints on this. Also, the setbacks, anybody can see with their naked eye that that's a housing development over there. That is not commercial. Why we don't get our setback like it should be, based on the intent of Southern Shores, which is a lot of that, lies on y'all. But I think the intent is that we didn't have commercial properties potentially that close to other residential, just like that dumpster was like 30 foot away from one of the houses that's been there. Anyway, thank y'all for your time, and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Mangum. Okay, that's all that have signed up. Anyone that came in and would like to speak before we shut this down, now's your chance. Would love to hear from you. Anybody? Okay. So we're gonna shut that down, and now we're gonna go into old business, which is special use permit 23-01, special use permit application submitted by Kathleen M. Saunders, P.E., on behalf of Gingite LLC for a mixed-use group development of commercial and residential buildings at 6195 North Croatan Highway. What I would like to do to keep things moving and keep us from going in circles, because we've answered a lot of questions already, but I would like to have the applicant, if you so choose, to come forward, and we'll go down the list that your attorney answered our questions from the previous planning board meeting. And if you would like to speak to any of that, you're welcome to come up.
Good evening. I'm also here as well. I'm the attorney you just spoke about. My name is Ashley Honeycutt-Terrazas, and I was hoping to give a brief introduction if I could.
Sure.
Okay. So good evening, Chairman Ward, members of the planning board. Again, I'm Ashley Honeycutt-Terrazas, 301 Fayetteville Street, Raleigh, land use attorney representing the applicant. And thank you so much again for your time and for allowing me to speak to you virtually today. So we're here again, third meeting to discuss the special use permit site plan application for a preliminary discussion about an application that has already gone through several rounds of technical review with town staff. Will ultimately be decided after a quasi-judicial hearing before the town council. In this preliminary discussion, we've been going over every aspect of the application, as well as other information that's not a part of the application, nor is it required to be. But we've had a long and robust, reasonable discussion. But again, this is still a two-building use development, 36 apartments, non-residential and commercial office uses as well, on a parcel that's been zoned for multifamily and commercial uses for many years. But because the uses are mixed in one development, a special use permit is required for the application per the zoning ordinance. And our development team has been going through this preliminary discussion process for the past 3 months. As a part of that, we've heard concerns and feedback from neighboring property owners. And as we discussed last time, we wanted to amend the plan we originally submitted to try to respond to some of that, which is the intent of this public process. So we heard feedback in this public forum about a plan for a use that's permitted with a special use permit. We met with neighboring church leaders, and our team offered to meet multiple times with the Southern Shores Landing residents. So we showed a concept plan last time, showed several changes based on what we heard. Originally, we had, like 15 feet of landscaping on the eastern property line. No buffer is required under the zoning ordinance between commercially zoned properties. The dumpster enclosure was on the property line. We also had new landscaping on the property line adjacent to the church, where there's an existing path used by the church that's on our property. So we officially amended the plan to address some of those concerns, and we've submitted the full amended set to the town. We added that 20-foot buffer with existing vegetation and a retaining wall on the eastern property line, moved the dumpster enclosure away from the property line, and now plan to retain more existing vegetation and the existing path being used by the church on our site. So we also went ahead and removed the marina. I know there were some comments about that earlier. As staff has determined, it's not currently permitted in the general commercial zoning district. But the rest of the plan has not changed. Submitted all of the elements and, excuse me, I'm getting a little feedback here. We submitted an updated U.S. Army Corps of Engineers wetlands determination, in which the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers determined just last month that, as before, there are no wetlands on the area of the property that the applicant plans to develop. They're on the northern side of the creek, and we're not developing there. We also added some additional landscaping to the renderings of the front elevation. That's a requirement. We heard from this board that we should add more landscaping than was previously shown. So we did that, and also submitted a rendered version of the landscape plan, again, to further show the landscaping on the front and the sides of the building, which the size required to be shown. Again, as we discussed last time, this is not the last stage of the development process. And even if the town council approves the special use permit, there's still more permits and state agencies that will review the development, more studies, including a traffic impact analysis that we will have to do to be able to build this project. And we also want to acknowledge that the private wastewater treatment plant that will serve the project has been and continues to go through additional processes through the regulating agencies, which are the North Carolina Utilities Commission and the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And those will need to be resolved before permits would be issued to extend wastewater infrastructure to this planned project. So again, we've submitted all of the required information. We're happy to answer questions about it, although we've covered everything quite extensively in the many hours we spent discussing this in the preliminary discussion forum, and also in our responses to the 36 additional written questions that this board has submitted between meetings. And so any new questions, again, relevant to this application and this applicant, which is the entity this development, we're happy to answer those. And so we respectfully request that you make a recommendation so that our application can then be decided by the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Once again, just to be clear, we got an email that was written from the attorney at Parker Poe, Jamie Schweidler, and it was sent to Lauren Womble, who is our town attorney, and in turn, it was copied to the planning board. Like I said, there were 26 questions that we had concerns, or they weren't all questions, they were concerns. And Ms. Schweidler wrote back, and I would like to give you a chance, if there's anything you want to add on. I'd like to keep this brief from a planning board's standpoint because we've been over it, and we're just kind of tying up loose ends. So
Sure.
If you want to answer questions, Mr. Strader, or the applicant, whatever you choose, but we're going to tick down 1 through 26 fairly quickly.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I only stood up because I thought you were asking me to come up to go through these.
I didn't realize your
Yeah.
attorney was Zooming, but fair enough. Okay.
Well, we're here to,
Is
And
that,
apologies for not being there this evening.
do you want to, we're going to go down the list. Do you want to speak
Sure.
to starting from number 1 and moving to 26?
Yeah, and just to be clear, It's from Jamie, but obviously we worked on it together with the development team. So this is a response from all of us.
I understand that. Okay, we're going to start off. I'll read the question, and if you have any information that we need to know, we'll go from there. First question is add a condition, or first comment was add a condition that requires an independent traffic study prior to town decision or application for a building permit with review by a third-party engineer. Your answer is in front of us. Anybody have any comment or addition, subtraction on the first item that's up? I have one thing. I don't know if you want to answer this, Mr. Strader, but I'm a little confused on the last sentence, which says NCDOT, comma, an independent state agency, comma, will review and approve this TIA. What comes first, the independent
Sure.
review or?
Yes, sir. So there would be an independent traffic engineer that must be hired, does the traffic study. And yes, they work directly with NCDOT, who obviously does the review. And then they make formal recommendations. They could add requirements. But
Okay.
yes, it's performed by this independent traffic consultant that must be a North Carolina licensed engineer.
Right.
And it's reviewed and approved by NCDOT.
Is that someone that the DOT picks for the project, the independent? How does that work?
Right. They would be hired by the applicant
The applicant?
unless the town were to take that on, but
Hold it down, please. So picked by the applicant.
sure.
Okay.
Could you do me a favor? I don't know whether everybody could hear you, and I don't even know whether they're picking it up so could you speak up or make sure the microphone is on?
Tap that microphone. Is it on? Yeah.
Okay, could you get closer? Because they want to hear.
Okay. If no one else has anything on number one, we will, I did have one other thing. Is in number one, the response from Ms. Schwedler said that the planning board cannot require a TIA. And she's exactly right. We have no authority to require anything in this process. Number two is strike if in the recommended condition number 5. Anybody have any concern about striking if? I mean, I think it was if we were going to, a traffic study was in order, and DOT said absolutely there will be a traffic study. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Moving to number 3. This, I would like to kind of circle back around to number 3, possibly later. Basically, it says how often is water quality tested, conducted before and after construction? And the answer was the plant is operated as per NCDEQ permit by North Carolina licensed operator, regularly monitored by NCDEQ. And that same answer below where it starts with the SUP 2301, that same answer is for number 5 and for number 7. It's the exact same wording at the end of each one of those. So I think we understand where the applicant stands on their requirement for wastewater. So I would like to kind of leave those off for now, and we will circle back to them. So that would get us through number 8. Once again, just jumping back up, sorry to be skipping around, but the planning board, it says the planning board cannot require this prior to making a recommendation about the wastewater. And once again, we have no authority to require that. Number 8 says the planning board may recommend to council about the condition requiring wastewater treatment plant parcels to be recombined prior to town decision or application for permit. So I'm assuming that you or the applicant is agreeable to combine or recombine the two properties that make up the wastewater treatment plant.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, number 9 is, do covenants allow the proposed number of residential units with respect to wastewater? And that answer was yes. I would just simply say that our attorneys would be the final say on that statement or that question that we may have. And then in number 10 says provide updated covenant that replaced previous covenant recorded in 12-202 between Southern Coastal Associates, Blinken, and Body Knoll Hayes, referencing 18,000 gallons per day or 50 single family equivalents. And number 5 in the summary of deeds. Once again, I would say our attorneys would be capable of making sure that that is the case. Do you have any concern about any of those covenants, additions,
No, sir.
subtractions?
No, sir. We feel good about the covenants.
Anybody?
Yeah, I got a question. It says here, the covenants do not specify the number of units. Am I correct? That's the answer. It's number 9, first sentence. Yet, if you read the covenant, it's right here. And it says 18,000 gallons per day or 50 single-family equivalents. I'm going to ask you just a yes or no. Are there going to be more than 50 family equivalents between the two?
Yeah, and not to mention, so the
A yes
The
or no? Is there
DWR
going to be more than 50? That's,
well, not to mention that the DWR rules for determining the gallons per day per bedroom have also changed from the time of those covenants too.
but
30
has the 50 single-family residents changed?
36.
In other words,
will
it
be-
says the maximum is 50 single-family equivalents, and we're not even talking about the restaurant, et cetera, et cetera. We're just talking about that. And it says 18,000 gallons per day or 50. Would you, that's what your covenant said, yet the response was quite, the covenants do not specify the number of units. Now, either it does or it doesn't.
Well, it doesn't.
It doesn't. So why do they have 50?
That's just, it's single family equivalents.
Pardon me?
Those are single family equivalents. So you could have a certain number of restaurant seats that are equivalent to a single family unit.
50 single-family equivalents. So you're saying, okay.
And just to be clear, per the covenants, that is a minimum that this parcel, the Body Knoll parcel, is entitled to. If the wastewater treatment facility can treat more than that, it can, but it has to be approved by NCDEQ, obviously. Any of this has to be approved by them.
Where is the word minimum?
The wastewater treatment, they are entitled to 18,000 gallons per day or 50 single-family equivalents
Yeah.
of wastewater treatment use. More particularly described, that's how the covenants work.
I know how the covenants work, but it doesn't say minimum. You said that's a minimum. I'm looking for the word minimum. That's all.
Understood.
Okay, we can move on.
Okay, thank you, Tony. And we'll, once again, our attorneys will double check what their attorneys are saying. So with respect to the two covenant issues there. Number 11 is require a Corps of Engineers wetlands delineation prior to town decision or application for a building permit. I believe the applicant has provided us with a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers dated October 27th. And it does show 404 wetlands only on the marsh area to the north. Is that right?
That's correct.
Nothing was identified anywhere else on the site as wetlands.
Not in the proposed development area.
Okay. Everybody satisfied with that? Okay. Number 12 is add GIS overlay to concession sheet. The answer is from the attorney is not, this is not required, but will be provided with the updated site plan. 13 is,
And you, but you,
sorry, Mike.
you did get a copy of that
We
exhibit with
did.
the site plan. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah, there's a related question. Well, it's number 13. It says remove all, remove marina, proposed dock, picnic area, kayak storage, and proposed dock that extends into Gingock Creek from all plan sheets prior to the next planning board meeting, which that has been kind of done. I can still see boat slips on the landscape plan that you provided us. They're faint, but they're there. Are you right?
It has all been removed from the site plan set. I'll have to take a look
How
at that.
about from the landscape?
I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, can
That's
you-
probably a rendering that
Could
they may
you
have left it
possibly
on.
pull that up? Just real quick. I mean, we're not going to get into it one way or the other, but
On the landscape plan?
the landscape plan dated
Yeah.
November 9.
And I see what you're referring to.
Just in the
The-
site plan.
Talking about the rendered one?
The rendering.
It was the color set.
Rendering?
Yeah, the one with color on it.
It's got color on it.
I was just,
But just to be
Yeah,
clear,
there
those are not.
I'm still
proposed.
seeing boat docks and slips.
I
in
think,
that one.
I think it's on the rendered landscape. Like, yeah, that one.
You think what?
That one, the rendered one, the one with the color on it.
So that got through the cracks, huh? Just, we ask you to remove the boat docks and slips moving forward, and they're still there. No big deal. We know that they can't be there, so. Number 14 says submit elevation drawings that show the buildings from the rear of the site. Once again, their attorney says this is not required. Is everybody satisfied with the rest of that answer?
No,
Michael?
I don't think it's certainly not required as part of the application, but I think through the board's review, they can certainly request that additional information. And I don't think the applicant's been responsive to that.
There drawings of the north elevation that we, with the original submittal, they're just not included in, but they're on there. We can pull that up. Not the resubmittal, on the original submittal.
Ashley, we're having a hard time hearing you. I'm not quite sure what.
I can write it in the text box. So I was just saying that there were drawings of the northern elevations in the original submittal. I think Wes is controlling. I'm not sure who's controlling it.
So I think the point I had made at the meeting prior, and that was captured in the itemized list, was a request that there be a rendering, a line of sight view from the rear, not just elevations, but a rendering, because I think that's going to be an impactful view. The front is certainly impactful as well. I think it's, approximately 620 feet in length from end to end. and of obstructed view. And it'll be similarly, obviously, from the rear.
Anybody else on that? I mean, I'm just trying to move through this. They've given us their reply. Just as long as we know that that's what they want us to know, then we'll be able to move forward and hopefully get to a vote tonight. So I'm not trying to belabor what is on here. They have given us the information that we have spoken to previously in a lot of these questions. But I agree with you, Michael. Okay. On item 16, submit renderings that show the buildings relative to the landscape plan show from Highway 158. I think that was just what was up there. So we'll check that as done. The foundation encroaches into some of the parking spaces. And the answer is all of the parking spaces meet the minimum dimensional requirements in Town of Southern Shores Ordinance 36-163. I would imagine that would be if those parking spaces didn't meet the requirement, they would be called it permit review. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would note for the record that they did revise the plan to resolve it.
Yeah,
So,
I think as well. So, number 18 is no building mounted lights are shown. Does that answer seem to be adequate? I know that was a concern of yours at the last meeting, Michael.
Not in my opinion. It indicates in the site plan review section that a site plan is supposed to show all outdoor lighting. And the plan does not show building mounted lighting.
Okay. Anybody else on lighting for now? Number 19, the lighting specifications do not match the proposed lights, which is just a rehash of.
Well, yeah, and I think I just want to make sure. So this is the document that you submitted as part of the application with the light specs?
Yeah, that was in the original.
Correct, right. And then on your plan sheet, 11A, you call out the specs. And the point I was trying to make is that there's 4 spec light types for pole mounted lights.
Right.
Only one of those do the lumens match here. So that's why I was trying to figure out what the discrepancy was. So it's maybe just something you all need to confirm that the plan specs match these specs.
So not knowing what your concern was, just that there was an inconsistency in the plan, in the specifications. We
Correct.
went back, had the lighting consultant review it. The only thing we could come up with was that perhaps we hadn't labeled the bollards separately. So that's why we added that to that
No, you've
overall
got
first sheet.
these MRM lights that are 18L, 12L, 9L, and 24L.
Mhm.
And the lumens listed for the 24L are the only ones that are correct that I can find in this. So there's some discrepancy from what's been spec'd to what's on the plans. And as long as it doesn't mess up the foot candles,
Right.
I think it's fine, but
I think what you're saying, the highlighted portion of the cut sheets that were included, we didn't highlight the other one that had the lumens.
you can't find those lumen numbers in the cut sheets that you gave us. You
Okay.
can't find the lumen numbers from the plan except for the one type.
Okay.
I think we had 2 different cut sheets on the lighting plan, if I remember.
There were for the bollards and then for the
Yeah,
pole lights.
okay.
Right.
But the foot candles noted on the lighting plan, on the photometric plan, those are accurate.
Okay. Yeah, they probably are because you probably got those in CAD. Yeah.
Once again, I would assume as far as foot candles go with lighting ordinance, there will be some check it permit review on any type of discrepancy. Okay, moving on. Number 20, submit a plan for emergency vehicles and large truck deliveries, including clearance under the east building. The answer is there is an 8-foot clearance for the east building parking, and this was clarified to town staff on 7/31. No emergency vehicles or large delivery vehicles will park or otherwise pass under this building. Once again, I would think that would be picked up at permit review if it didn't meet standard for emergency vehicles. Anybody? Okay. You're satisfied with their, I mean, it's a fairly lengthy explanation, but we just have to take it at what they've said, so, at this point. There isn't anywhere to mount wall signage. Wall signage location will be determined at the time of building permits, and signage for individual tenants will be permitted through the town and will be required to meet all signage requirements. Anything to add to that, Mike?
No, but any application would definitely have to go through planning.
Exactly. Okay. Submit a construction management plan for construction phases and a timeline. This is not required for a site plan or a special use permit. However, it could be a condition of a special use permit, I would think. I mean, just trying to think about a project of this magnitude going on for years. How do we control that as a town, Wes?
Typically, the building inspector will look into all that prior to construction commencing.
As far as any kind of time constraint?
What do you mean by time
I
constraint?
mean, as far as, you know, from the time it would start until the time that it would get the occupancy permit? I mean, could it be 5 years? That's all I'm
If a
wondering.
building permit is issued, then they have 180 days to have an inspection conducted. And if they don't have an inspection conducted within 180 days, the permit expires. If they do have an inspection within 180 days, then they have 12 months from the date of that inspection to have the next inspection.
So it could go
Correct.
on and on from inspection to inspection.
Per the town ordinance and statute, yes, sir.
Okay.
What is what are the allowed hours of operation, hours of construction on the weekends?
No work, no noise, work-related noise generated on Sunday, and it's 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, I believe.
I mean, I think the challenge is, you know, certainly condition it to a construction management plan and some prohibition on construction hours on Saturdays. Because you're going to have issues accessing, I mean, during certain times of the year.
Just a thought. Okay. Number 23, where will materials be left? They will be left on the subject property. I mean, that's kind of a easy one. I don't think you'd put them out in the highway. Not even sure where that came from. No construction entrance off of Landing Trail, and no left turn onto Landing Trail from the site. The answer from the applicant's attorney was the updated site plan shows the relocation of the construction entrance on sheet 6. The plan already proposes a right in and right out on Landing Trail. Everybody satisfied with that response? Okay, provide a copy of easement that allows Southern Shores Landing residents to traverse 6195 North Crowtown Highway. The answer is pretty involved. I'm not gonna take that one on, I would say that that would be for our town attorney review on that covenant, as well as the other two that we have concerns with. Number 26 is provide copy and explanation of easement allowing sewer line connection to the lift station where the new sewer line is proposed. Once again, this is lawyerese here. I would say that that would be something that our town attorney would review. So we take what you've said here at face value, and we'll go with it until we're told otherwise. Number 27 is not on there, but our attorney shot it through before I could put one more on there that I thought of that we've never even touched on. And I want to just briefly touch on this, and that is the soil data as it relates to NCDEQ stormwater management permit. We haven't talked or looked at the soil data, but it's significant. You got any comments on that as far as the fill? The first question that comes to my mind is the west building is going to have up to 6 feet of fill under it. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the proposed grading plan has that, but you asked if I had anything to say about the soil. So for the areas of proposed infiltration, there will be undercutting of that underlying restrictive horizon, like we mentioned before. So that will be undercut and then backfilled in with good permeability soils.
A lot of it has very significant amount of peat in it. I mean,
Right.
undercut to the extreme potentially. What type of fill goes back in when the peat comes out?
It's select fill material, so good type 1 soils.
Mhm. Do you share that information that's in your narrative? I mean, it's certainly involved, but the conclusions in the narrative from the scientist don't paint a pretty picture for what's underneath what we're seeing with our eyes on the surface.
Well, you're not mistaken that it doesn't paint a pretty picture economically.
No.
I mean, but yes, it's certainly construction that can be done.
Do you, everything that you've given us in the site narrative with respect to the soil data,
Right.
is that shared word for word with NCDEQ for stormwater
It
permit?
accompanies that stormwater permit application package, and those specifications have been incorporated into the site plan design and
Okay.
that permit application package, which definitely has to be reviewed and approved by Daimler
Yeah.
prior to any building permit issuance.
Yeah, I just was curious if you sent it to them or if they required it from you as the engineer.
They do, and we do, yes.
Okay. Anybody have questions on the soil? Sure.
I have a quick one. Do you know how far down you're going to have to dig?
I do. It's based on that soil report, and then
Yeah. We know the bottom elevations of the stormwater facilities. Do you know how much farther down you're going to have to go below that?
yes,
How far?
I've got it specified in the design drawings, but
Okay.
it's specified in the design drawings based on that soil data, that soil report.
Okay.
So you're going to hit water at 18 inches, aren't you?
It was at least a couple feet, yeah.
18 inches, 24 inches. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's your forte, just as long as you share all the information that is in the soil report with NCDEQ. I
Absolutely.
think we would be satisfied, or the town should be satisfied.
Just a quick thing. You used the word, we're going to fill it with good soil. What is good?
It's got to be high permeability soils based on Daimler's infiltration requirements. So it's select material, type 1 sand, coarse sand material.
So you're going to replace it with sand material? I'm just trying to get clarification.
right.
Good,
It's
good
not-
means nothing, you know?
Let me just, it not fines, not something that's gonna not infiltrate water.
Everybody satisfied from 1 to 27?
Do you know how the stormwater facilities will be maintained?
Yeah, there's an operation and maintenance agreement that the applicant signs, and they're obligated because they will be the permittee that operation and maintenance agreement follows the duration, the whole life of that stormwater permit. So there are operation and maintenance requirements for the various types of stormwater control measures that have been designed, because there's multiple types.
How does that differentiate from the maintenance agreement for the infiltration pond on the wastewater side? It says that must be maintained to ensure permeability.
Now, I'm not familiar with that wastewater.
Okay. We good on 1 through
I have
27?
another question.
I-
I have another question outside of those.
Oh, well, we'll get there.
All right.
Okay, so at the end of Ms. Schwedler's report back to us with the information that we've just gone over, she says, we look forward to wrapping up the discussion on SUP 2301 at your next meeting on November 20 and receiving a recommendation on special use permit and site plan. All required materials have been submitted, and we have made extensive efforts to answer the planning board's questions about the subject application. The amount of application review time thus far has been more than reasonable. Sincerely, Jamie S. Schwedler. Okay. My intention was to kind of try to get to the moment here is we're going to deliberate among the 6 members of the planning board. 5 votes. Mr. Zenner is the alternate, sitting in the alternate's position, but he can answer or ask any amount of questions he wants, but he will not vote in this. But once we get deliberating up here, we're going to try not to go back and forth again. It's going to stop.
But if you do need to call upon the applicant, just let us know, and we'll be glad to attempt to
Yeah,
address your
sure.
question.
But as far as questions that we may have for the applicant, it will be minimal. So now's your chance. The applicant is sitting behind you. If he would like to speak before we go into deliberation, be glad to hear from him. Mr. Gupta?
Any questions that you guys have?
Okay,
For the deliberation.
okay. Wes, can I get you to read from the zoning ordinance 36-305 before we get started on our deliberation?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. 36-300 is application for permit for special uses. 5 states, before they may grant any special use permit or vested right, the town council shall make affirmative findings that A, the applicant has met the requirements of the applicable provisions of the town chapter pertaining to zoning, subdivision chapter, and all other applicable ordinances. B, that the use as proposed will conform with the town's land use plan and will be compatible with the area in which it is to be located, if developed in accordance with the conditions specified in the chapter and additionally required by the town council as authorized by the chapter. C, that the use will not materially endanger the public health and safety if located where proposed and developed according to the plan submitted. And lastly, D, that the use as proposed will not overburden the town volunteer fire department firefighting capabilities and the county water supply capacity to the town, as said facilities and capabilities will exist on the completion date of the special use for which the application is made.
Thank you, Wes.
Will you leave up item 6 up, please? Yes.
Okay, what I would like to do in our deliberation is everybody's got the recommended conditions, SUP 23-01 in front of them. That's what we're gonna tick through 1 through 8 on that, and basically say we're in approval of what that condition may say, or if you have any additions or subtractions to these conditions. Everybody got that in front of them? Unless you've got it up there. Okay. Number 1, the following approvals shall be issued prior to submittal of a building permit application. Item A is soil erosion sedimentation control plan permit for land disturbance over 1 acre from NCDEQ. Straightforward. Any questions? Number 2, stormwater management permit from NCDEQ. That was just answered by Mr. Strader, my concern about the soils. Number 3, NCDOT driveway permit and/or encroachment application for work in a state right-of-way. Everybody okay on that? Fairly straight. Okay. Number D, we are going to circle back to more towards the end of this discussion. So we're going to skip that. And number E is CAMA permit from NCDEQ. And that's a major permit, correct?
That's correct.
So that would need to be called out?
It could be clarified by adding major CAMA permit from the
Okay.
NCDEQ.
Can you make that
Yes, sir.
addition? Okay. Review and approval of potable water distribution system modifications or extensions by Dare County Water Department. Tentative approval has been received. Extensions by the, end of sentence. That's just speaking to the water system that would need to be put in place on the site.
Based on the, based on the SUP approval requirements, the document we looked at a moment ago, should the fire department or any other public safety, there was a provision there that they not be taxed or that they not be overwhelmed or something like that. Is there a review for the public safety group? I don't know.
The fire chief and fire marshal and our building inspector were involved in the review, staff review up to this point.
Okay.
And they were involved, they were in support of, or supportive of, recommended condition, number 2 and number 3,
Okay.
where it states all other applicable fire code requirements.
Okay, that'll meet number 5, D or E, I think it was.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
Good? You good? Okay, receipts for payment of water connection fee from Dare County Wastewater, from Dare County Water Department. H is water main extension permit from NCDEQ. I is lot disturbance stormwater management permit from the town. And I had a question there. What does that involve, Wes?
The first permit that they would have to obtain if they're granted a special use permit, prior to applying for a building permit, they have to obtain what's called a lot disturbance stormwater management permit. And that's a permit where we address potential fill, or in this case, it would be fill, the existing conditions on the site, vegetation and tree removal, things of that nature, prior to issuance of a building permit. That permit has to be obtained before they can even submit an application for a building permit.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and item J says approval from the Dominion Energy Transmission Group. And I think it needs to also be added into number 1J, that it should include somehow in the language there, it should include easements for 50-foot at the power poles and 70 feet of power line easement with parking inside that 70 feet easement. I'm not quite sure how you would word that, but it certainly should be a requirement prior to submittal of a building permit from the staff standpoint.
Yeah, it would be something to the effect of, at the end of it, just comma, including 70-foot easement prior to submittal of a building permit application. Or
Okay.
70-foot easement approval
Yeah, prior to
prior to
submittal.
submittal.
Okay. Okay, number 2, prior to submittal of construction drawings, an updated fire hydrant flow test must be conducted and witnessed by town staff. That might be part of what you were asking, Rob.
Fire hydrants to test
Hmm?
in the vicinity.
I don't know. Construction drawings shall demonstrate compliance with needed fire flow requirements and all other applicable fire code requirements. So I'm sure our fire chief would be heavily involved in any site plan moving forward.
Yes, sir, as well as the fire marshal. Yes, sir.
Okay, number 4, the site plan identifies a marina, so on and so forth. That is removed because it is not an allowed use in commercial zone, correct?
Correct,
So
yes,
that,
sir. So
number 4 should be stricken.
we as staff we're fine with removing recommended condition number 4 since that has been removed, minus the aerial, the rendering. But
Correct.
on the site
Yeah.
plan sheets themselves, it has been removed.
So it should be removed from all sheets distributed to the planning board or to the town.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Number 5 starts off if, and we addressed that early on. NCDOT requires an independent study by the applicant? Is that something that we have any control of? Or, I mean, can we settle on an independent between the applicant and the town?
Since we know now for sure that NCDOT is going to require a traffic impact assessment or traffic study, we would suggest revising that condition to any and all requirements in the NCDOT required traffic impact assessment or traffic study must be satisfied prior to submittal of a building permit application.
Okay. That seems adequate.
I think that the town can require the hiring of a third-party review on behalf of the town to be covered by the cost, to be the cost covered by the applicant.
Or at least agree on one rather than it being one-sided from either the town or the applicant.
Well, the applicant's gonna have to prepare it, but the town should have a third-party reviewer review it on behalf of the town to make comments to NCDOT.
I agree. Any precedent for that?
Not that I can think of at the moment, sir. No.
That would be an asterisk I would put beside that one. Okay, number 6. Maintain a 50-foot setback from the eastern property line adjacent to Southern Shores Landing, applicable to buildings and other facilities such as parking spaces, incinerators, trash collection areas, etc., and preserve the existing natural vegetative buffer. We okay with that?
One of the things that I saw on their plans is they maintained a buffer and then they put the words "if feasible." And I have great questions on "if feasible." That's like, okay, we're going to maintain the buffer and you have your fingers crossed. I mean,
Well,
I think it has to be very concrete and not using words like "if feasible" or "perhaps" or that type of thing. That's on the plan.
yeah, well, the wording in number 6 is, rock solid.
Yeah.
There's no ifs or maybes in there. It's not feasible. It says what it says. Number 7 is maintain a 50-foot setback from the northern property line adjacent to All Saints Episcopal Church, applicable to buildings and other facilities such as parking spaces, incinerators, trash collection areas, etc., and preserve the existing natural vegetative buffer. Number 8, the applicant must strictly abide by all requirements of the town code and must also strictly comply with all applicable local, state, and federal requirements. So that is the end of what staff recommended conditions were for SUP 23-01. At this point, we've gotten a lot of information. We're just kind of rehashing what we've heard before from the applicant. And I think at this point in our deliberation, we need to open up the information that Board Member Ed Lawler has provided from extensive questions and answers and emails and telephone calls from NCDEQ and from the North Carolina Utility Commission. So at this point, we are going to take a look at wastewater and how it impacts our decision. I want to read a little bit before we start, and if you can be listening to me and gathering up your information from our packet, but this is from Chapter 32, Utilities. Wes, could you pull that up on the screen? And I'm going to read section 32-2 through -5. And it is concerning utilities, wastewater being a utility that we need to factor into our deliberation. 32-2, the matters described in this chapter shall be subject to such enforcement controls or requirements as necessary to ensure the protection of the public health and safety as related to the management of wastewater treatment and disposal practices within the jurisdiction of the town. Section 32-3 says wastewater management. The provisions of this chapter are intended to establish the basis for regulatory permit issuance to all wastewater systems, public and/or private, within the town's jurisdiction. The chapter recognizes that state and county regulations shall apply, except where the town requirements are more restrictive. The supervision and enforcement of rules and regulations by state and/or county government shall be continuously monitored by the town. Section 32-4, Planning Board Review. The Planning Board shall be responsible for screening all projects requiring wastewater management systems and the determination of compliance with the doctrines of this chapter prior to the recommending the project to Town Council for final approval. By this chapter, the Planning Board may retain as necessary the services of consultants who are expert in the planning and design of wastewater systems to advise the board on technical matters as may apply to a specific project review. And lastly, 32-5 is community, non-community, and private wastewater systems. The type, capacities, location, and layout of community, non-community, or private wastewater management systems shall comply with all requirements of the County Health Department, State Division of Environmental Management, State Department of Human Resources, or other such agency, board, or authority having regulatory control over wastewater management, development, and practice. Any wastewater system within the town shall have one owner, whether individual, corporate, or other legal entity. The town will issue all permits to this one owner, and the owner will be responsible for the sanitary and safe operation of the wastewater system. The owner will be fully responsible for the control of all waste dumped into the system. In case of unsatisfactory operation, the town will institute formal actions with the owner, and the owner will be responsible for any inconveniences caused to the users of the wastewater system should termination of system operation be required in order to restore efficient, safe, and sanitary operations. Before commencement of construction of wastewater management system, the owner shall obtain a written permit from the appropriate regulatory authority and furnish a copy thereto to the town. The copy of the permit shall be accompanied by such supplementary data as deemed necessary by the town to maintain an accurate file of such wastewater disposal systems. No statements contained in this section shall be construed to interfere with any additional requirements that may be imposed by other county, state, or federal agencies. Any question on 32-2 through 5? I think it cuts to the chase pretty well. I'll read one more time. The planning board shall be responsible for screening all projects requiring wastewater management systems. And that's us, folks. I would like to call on Mr. Lawler just to give us a brief layout of what he's done to get to this point in our discussion. Ed,
Well, all right. I went to the state website and copy and read the online publications, or they copy out all documentation and correspondence. And I was rather surprised to see there's been 2 inspections of the facility since 2018. But neither one of the inspections were, they were just not, the summary was the facility is non-compliant. And there were numerous deficiencies in the equipment and the operation and the maintenance of the facility. And the monitoring wells, the water quality, the monitored parameters in the monitoring wells outside of the wastewater plant, they have exceeded their limits. So it's just the inspection included something like 75 parameters that were looked into, and only 34% of those parameters were either not in compliance or just plain not evaluated. So we can't go into the plant ourselves. It's locked. You can only read these reports. But the level of equipment that's not operational, or for that matter, even there anymore, is just phenomenal. Specifically, this is supposed to be a wastewater reuse plant. That's the way it was permitted. There's no place for water quality meeting reuse standards to be applied. The spray field hasn't been, like it was said earlier, has not been used in a number of years. The pumps that operate the spray field are not operational if in fact they're there. The control panel is out, does not work. So all the wastewater, whether it meets treatment standards or not, goes into the infiltration pond, which is supposed to be used for emergency situations where the treated the effluent, if it doesn't meet reuse standards, goes to that pond. So that pond just gets the water whether it's right or wrong.
Hey, Ed, can I bump in on you here? Wes, would you mind pulling up the, all the documents that have been provided on the, from DEQ and NCUC? Can you pull that up?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I went through in my own system, Ed, and just kind of numbered each set of documents that would be up there, starting with the permit that is held right now. Can you pull that permit up? It's the very first one in what you sent us, Wes. That's the cover letter for it right there. The date is October 3rd, 2018. So the GWWTP, and I'm gonna the owners of that LLC happen to be the applicant, Mr. Gupta and his family. And it's a lot easier for me to say Mr. Gupta than it is to say GWWTP LLC. So I'm going to refer to it that way. Anyhow, the cover letter is from the DEQ, Linda Culpepper, Interim Director, Division of Water Resources, dated October 3. The Gupta LLC purchased that plant from Paragon Utilities in March of 2017. They received the permit, a year and a half later, from the state. And it is, the very first line says, for the continued operation of the subject reclaimed water generation, conjunctive reclaimed water utilization, and low rate infiltration facilities, which is what? Irrigation.
Yeah, the pond.
Yeah. And it also says the permittee has changed from Giganite Woods Water Reclamation Association, which I will refer to as Blinken because he was the owner of that LLC. It's easier to say Blinken than it is to roll through a bunch of WWs. Anyway, the permittee has changed. It says the last paragraph, if any parts, requirements, or limitations contained in this permit are unacceptable, the permittee has the right to request an adjudicatory hearing upon written request within 30 days following receipt of this permit. Unless such demands are made, this permit shall be final and binding. So I'm assuming that that permit is final and binding today. Is that correct, Ed?
As far as what it says.
Well,
That's all I got.
so if you can pull up the permit, Wes. That is a permit issued October 3, 2018. The first section of that says the operation of a 32,500 gallon per day reclaimed water generation, conjunctive reclaimed water utilization, and low rate infiltration system, consisting of a lot of stuff that I have no earthly idea what it is, but it says, and Ed does, it says continued operation of the reclaimed water irrigation system. It goes on the next paragraph, continued operation of a low rate infiltration system. The operation of the reclaimed water irrigation system consists of a pump station with dual 185 gallon per minute irrigation pumps and 3.26 acres of common area with the automatic sprinkler systems. Any evidence that those systems have ever worked?
There's nothing in the state documents on their website that shows that any of those things have been tested, verified, anything. Nothing does not work. So never has. Well, I don't know whether it never has worked, but it hasn't worked in a long time. So the water never gets to the area where it was stipulated in this permit where it should go. So, it's like, how, it just doesn't work the way it was designed and permitted. So to take additional wastewater capacity and put it into a system that doesn't work now, it's like, what are you saying?
I don't think anybody sitting up there, sitting here would not agree with that statement. Looking through the permit, there's several items that we need to look over. The first page of the permit just calls for the continued operation, and that's it. Then it goes on to, if you go to page 4 of 10. It gives a lot of the setbacks in the permit. Whether those have been met or not, I'm not here to question one way or the other. But the permit is lengthy. It is 10 pages long, and it is very explicit
Specific.
what it calls for. And since 2018, when that permit was issued to Mr. Gupta's LLC, those conditions, many of the conditions in the wastewater treatment permit have not been met. Jan?
And I know you had an answer in here that says we can't ask that, but if the permit expires the end of this month, November 30th, 2023, does the applicant have to re-get a permit? And is the permit based on acceptable conditions? In other words, can these conditions be highlighted and a permit not allowed again unless these conditions are met? In other words, we now have information in front of us that the system that was designed is no longer functioning in the nature of the way it was supposed to be. And we see now this permit expires this month. You know, what can we do to go back and say, okay, you know, we've noted these discrepancies, and can we ask that these discrepancies be taken care of?
We can ask because we just read that the town can do this. The state is not doing it. The state doesn't have our back.
But I think that the permit is good for X amount of years.
Yeah, I think it's 5 years.
They, when it was purchased in 2018, or permitted, it was purchased in 2017, March of 2017 from Paragon Utilities. It was permitted October 3, 2018. I believe that the permit was exactly the same. All the parameters of the permit
Yes.
were exactly the same, and they will probably be so when they redo the permit that's about to expire. I believe that's right.
Yes, and they're gonna issue that permit probably.
They,
With the
and it will
exact
say
same-
exactly what this says.
I know, but how do you stop this?
Well, but basically, by the town code provision you read, through the SUP and site plan review process, presumably this board has a check on whether or not they have sufficient wastewater operations. And despite what their attorney said about it not being relevant, it's not relevant who owns the system. It just so happens that there are multiple parties involved in these applications.
Exactly.
But even if this were a municipal system, this board still has to determine whether or not that system was sufficient.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they've proven that.
Well, at one point, well, in the beginning, all these pieces of equipment listed on that first page of the permit were there, installed and in proper running order. But right now, a fraction of that equipment is functional.
So if you hold up a permit based on non-functioning equipment that was designed, does the state then step in and start fining, or
No.
how, in other words, how do you motivate the owner to do the repairs that are necessary to put this back into functioning order?
You just have to, say, well, if you don't have it, where we are now is that if you don't have it in running order, you can't ask for more wastewater to come to the plant. So it was like, if you want to do this, bring this up to snuff, the way it was described in the permit. So whatever you have to do, do it.
Yeah,
So
page 5 and 6 really says the requirement. It outlines the requirements on page 5 and 6.
We're not there.
No.
No. So it's,
Not by a long shot.
So the list of equipment and the original permit from 2006, that would have been something that DEQ approved at the time that Southern Shores Landing was built and constructed. And so the town said, okay, you can build Southern Shores Landing if you have a wastewater treatment facility that
treats to reuse.
does X, Y, and Z. And no, we don't want a stinking pond. We want it reclaimed water level. And, okay.
Well, the permit speaks for itself. There's just an unbelievable amount of equipment and rules and regulations in here that we as a town can't inspect. But we can certainly put pressure on the state, on Robert Tankard, who is, what is his title?
He's the lead guy in the Washington Regional Office.
And he often makes inspections. I've seen his name on some of these compliance inspection reports, which if you go west to the second item on, I think it's compliance inspection report dated,
You doing these? This is the one you want. This is the latest one.
yeah.
11/3/23 for 2021.
Well, I was going to just stay in order of how Wes had them on the sheet. I mean, this is from 8/3/21.
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I mean, we got it in our packet.
Yeah, here,
You know, on the front page, it's, you know,
Well, you have the
Non-com-
summary. The next page over, he has
Yeah,
the inspector's summary.
it's non-compliant
Right.
in that inspection. Infiltration pond
So
had
wait,
excessive.
stop.
What?
It says facility status. The black box is not compliant.
Yeah,
So it's not compliant in all of those areas.
the infiltration, from that report, on the next page over, Wes, the inspection summary said, and that was actually, it was inspected August 3rd of 21 by Victoria Hurd and Robert Tankard of the NCDEQ. The infiltration pond had excessive vegetation around the perimeter of the pond. Algae and duckweed were prevalent at the pond. This may cause problems with infiltration in the future. An attempt to start the generator failed. Generator has had problems in the past and was not operational on the day of inspection. The generator needs to be replaced. The catwalks were, and safety rails were dangerous, and they were going to, that team that was out that day was going to report those issues to the Department of Labor. Groundwater violations are present at, I'm assuming, monitoring well 1 and 2. And then it goes through and just shows.
The final sentence.
Yeah. Yeah, the final sentence says, comment, spray irrigation fields are not being utilized. The weather station is not operable. All wastewater is going to the high rate pond.
On the day of inspection, the facility was considered non-compliant in
Right.
regards to the permit.
And that was an older inspection. That
In
was,
August 21.
yeah, from August 21. So if you go to the next item, Wes, on your, what you've sent us, it's the Division of Water Resources Civil Penalty Assessment sheet. Everybody got that in front of them? Or it's up on the screen? Okay. That is from February of 2021. Mr. Gupta's family had owned it for about 2.5 years at that point. The facility, on under item 2, I just highlighted, the facility has been inspected over the last 5 years and has been non-compliant. The treatment facilities are corroded and not functioning properly. Turbidity is required to be reported continuously, and it is not reported for multiple days in February of 2021. Number 3, this is big. With the treatment units not functioning properly, the groundwater and surface water may be impacted with high nutrients and bacteria. There are documented groundwater exceedances for nutrients in the monitoring wells located around the high-rate infiltration pond. No documented fish kills or health risk to the public. It says in number 7, the facility has not been compliant since 2017 and has failed to come into compliance. The facility has a chronic history of exceeding limits and various monitoring and frequency violations. Recent inspections have shown the facility is currently in a state of disrepair and is not being properly operated or maintained. Granted, this is all in 2021. Wes, can you go to, I don't get maybe Ed to speak to this, but it was the fines that were levied in the October 27th, 2021 letter. It's up there.
Next one.
Next.
It's May 24th.
Yeah, there
Here
you
it
go.
is.
These are the fines that were levied in this particular visit from Mr. Tankard from DEQ. A couple of things that jumped out at me was fecal coliform and ammonia and nitrogen.
So these are the wastewater parameters that you have to meet to have this kind of facility. So you got to make water of a certain quality. So they exceeded these parameters that are used to define the degree of treatment that this water is receiving. And it's not very good.
Wes, can you go to the next to the last page? It would be attachment A.
That's it.
Yeah, right there.
There it is.
I was kind of blown away at this. This is an assessment of the percent over the limit of acceptable limits. On 2/25/21, fecal coliform was 9,580% over the limit. Is that possible? I'm just curious. I mean, but the very next one, on the 28th of February, fecal coliform was 17,185.7% over the limit. It's unbelievable. I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at, but I understand what over the limit means.
Yeah.
What does that represent, Ed?
You're going pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's no treatment occurring there, either from operator or facility maintenance and upkeep. Now, this is 2021, but it just shows what kind of track record they've had and the limited number of inspections from the state that have occurred. So the next inspection or inspection report that we have is from, what was the date?
That was
March
3/14/23.
of 23.
Let's get this one first.
Okay.
Just going down in order of how you've sent them, Wes, the fourth one, the fourth folder, it's addressed to Prem Gupta. Yep. At this point, they have been the owner for 4 years. This is dated May 24th, 2022. Dear permittee, to date, the division's records show that the following civil penalties assessed against your facility remain unpaid. Goes on to show, and what are those stand for, the enforcement case, Ed? It's
I think.
LM and
I guess
LV.
Limit, has something to do. with
Violation, limit violation.
and,
Anyway, I mean, it's not important other than, it totals $10,250. And then if you go to, those are the violations that have totaled up. They've not been paid. There's no late fee charged on there, but they have not been paid. And then you go over to, from the North Carolina Environmental Management Commission, the next page over, Wes. No, keep going.
Another document.
Next one. Oh, sorry.
You mean the next document?
No. Is that it for that document?
Yes, sir.
Here's the second page.
Okay. I had, and this is farther back in Edward Finley, who is an attorney for the permittee. I put this in mine, and you don't have it in front of you, but basically what happened with that $10,500 fine that was hanging out there was that the state reduced that payment to $3,087.57 or 50 cents. So basically reduced down to a little slap on the wrist. I think it could probably be classified as the cost of doing business.
I think there have to be some assurances from the permit holder to the state that they will put the rest of that money into the plant. The state doesn't want your money. They want you to fix the plant. So sometimes they go back and forth, say, well, I'll put some money into bringing in a new piece of equipment or, but.
And to that, it doesn't show where that money went, but I do see a check in, I think, the filing from their attorney, Mr. Finley. There's a check in there for that amount. So I'm assuming all of that went to NCDEQ. Okay, now on to the most recent compliance inspection report, which is number 6 going down the line, Wes. That date is 3/14/23.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. Once again, non-compliant is obvious, checked off. And this is in March of this year, so this is 5 years into the permit 6.5 years into the ownership of the plant by the permittee.
So if you go to the next page, there's the summary. Very similar to the previous inspection in 21. The generator is still, well, now they just come out and say, you need to replace the generator. It doesn't work. You don't have emergency standby power for a wastewater plant. I can't imagine not running a wastewater plant without emergency backup. Again, groundwater violations are present in monitoring well 1 and monitoring well 2. Monitoring well 2 is located off-site the wastewater treatment plant, so it's gone that far. The inspection facility was considered non-compliant. So if you go into the specifics of the inspection, they tell you, make little comments about components. Generator is old surplus Army type and has not worked for some time. The generator needs to be replaced. Bar screen, that's the head of the plant, requires a splash plate. Clarifiers are old and should be replaced within the next 2 to 3 years. So clarifiers are where you get your cleaner water at the end of treatment. And then the next comment was filters and tankage is old and needs to be replaced. Filters have to be manually backwashed with only one pump working. Filter media needs to be replaced. So this whole back end of the plant, the final scrubbers and so forth that clean the water for spray irrigation, none of that equipment is functioning properly. And then on top of all of that, the disinfection system is old and needs to be replaced. Fecal limits are not being met on a regular basis. And, from our land use plan, the biggest issue was water quality. And you're just running this stuff through there with no effective treatment. When it was originally supposed to be state-of-the-art wastewater treatment facility.
And then the last comment, the very last page, says reclaimed irrigation system is not functional. New irrigation pumps and controllers are required. Diversion valve needs to be checked to make sure it is functional, and if not, it needs to be replaced. New irrigation pumps and controllers are required. The reclaimed irrigation system is not functional. That's March of this year. Number 7 and number 8, Wes, are basically just an inspection. You can pull them up. Number 7 is a notice of violation. The date is April 3rd. The monitoring well 1, 2, and 3 are shown over on the sample location. This shows nitrogen and ammonia limits exceeded by 2-fold at this point. Then in the next one, number 8, notice of violation. On the next one is fecal coliform. Once again, exceeds the daily maximum it's just fecal coliform is probably as big a culprit to water quality as there is. Number 9, I think was, probably want to circle back to that because it's from the North Carolina Utilities Commission. But number 11, which was a letter from Edward Finley, who is an attorney for the Gupta's LLC there, dated September 15, 2023. And I think Ed probably know more about this, but it sounds to me like this is basically trying to terminate Bill Freed from Envirotech as the emergency operator. Did y'all?
Well, he was designated as an emergency operator, and he wasn't involved with the plant for some time, but he was, as far as their record's concerned, the man whose name was on the permit.
As
So
an
he
emergency
wanted-
operator.
As an emergency,
Yeah.
and he wanted to get clear of the treatment facility completely, so,
He sold his business.
yeah, he sold his business and he wanted out and he didn't want to be attached to this facility.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't understand the end of the very first paragraph that said Freed would request that he be relieved as the formal emergency operator, thereby obtaining authority to relinquish such formal authority, actually relinquished in 2001.
Yeah, I don't know, this is.
Yeah, seems pretty convoluted there, but this is all from Mr. Finley, as I said, attorney for the Permittees LLC. And then if you go to next page, Wes, it's State of North Carolina Utilities Commission.
Next page or next document?
I think it's all in number 11 or the 11th one. Yeah, right there. I was confused once again. Number 1 says by order issued on November 20th, 2009, commission determined that an emergency existed. And this is all concerning Bill Freed. It's a little confusing, but what was striking to me was on the next page, number 6. For many years, the original holder of the franchise, Mr. Blinken, is who that is, had no active role in Gingite Woods. Number 7, which is on November 20th of 2009, marked the termination of any active or ownership role played by Blinken for Gingite Woods wastewater treatment.
Wastewater reclamation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, wastewater reclamation. It's all fuzzy to me. But he's making a case to the Utilities Commission in that big packet that we got from the Utilities Commission. But somewhere in there, Paragon Utilities owned that thing from about 2012 to 2017 when the Guptas purchased it in March of 2017. That's about it for physical evidence in a fairly sad situation for a wastewater treatment plant. Anybody have any comments, questions? I would like to briefly look at the Utilities Commission reports that Ed has gotten for us. That would be different from the DEQ, from the Department of Environmental Quality. They're both state agencies, but they're completely different. Right?
Yeah, they don't seem to talk to each other.
So if you go down, Wes, and we're not going to go through 55 pages of this document by any stretch. But if you go to the fifth folder, which is dated February 10, 2023. You got that? That is also from Mr. Finley, attorney for the Guptas in this proceeding. He has addressed this letter to Shanta Dunstan, who is the chief clerk at the North Carolina Utilities Commission. And he's trying to make the case that everything's in order for the owner of the permit to be the franchisee of the utility. He goes on to accept, he says, please accept for the filing the following documents. And he goes over the documents quite extensively from page 1 to page 55. Had a couple of typos in the first paragraph. Bob Hauser, I don't think that's how you spell his name, but I've seen it spelled two different ways. And then he calls out Atlantic Beach OBX, which is Atlantic OBX. Okay, moving on to the State of North Carolina Utilities Commission page, the next page, Wes. Yep. Once again, from Mr. Finley, attorney for the Guptas. And this is an application for a transfer of certificate of public convenience and necessity for increase in rates. And that would be for the customers of the wastewater treatment plant at Southern Shores Landing. It's just, if you read his description of what has transpired, it's almost laughable in certain places. But in the first paragraph, he says, through inadvertence and without familiarity with commission requirements, a number of transactions have occurred supplement to initial granting of the wastewater franchise for Gingite Woods that require explanation and for which applicants seek commission approval, nunc pro tunc, which in law terms is now for then or retroactively to correct. Presently, the certificate of convenience and necessity is held by Blinken. I mean, it says so right there, by Gingite Woods Water Reclamation Association, sometimes GWWRA, originally owned by Neil Blinken. And it goes on to say, Mr. Finley says, in number 3, or in number 2, by order issued August 18th, 2019, the commission approved the interim rates for Blinken. 3, Blinken still holds the franchise. This is dated February 6, 2023. And I still haven't figured out, I don't think any of us have. Have you?
No.
Who holds the franchise? I don't think we know that answer definitively today, but on February 6th of this year, Mr. Blinken owned the franchise. And then it just goes on from there. If you go west to, there's a lot of accounting stuff, information in here. If you can go to the front page of the accounting. Yep. The seller is Gingite Woods Water Reclamation, LLC. LLC is not right. That has not been an LLC or an incorporation for years. That is incorrect, number one. What I found striking was in number 13, flat rate residential service for sewer for the folks at Southern Shores Landing is $232 per month. The permittee is amenable to phasing in the rate increase over a 2-year period.
What's the present rate?
90.
I'm sorry.
Present rate is 90.
Yeah, present rate is 90. Thank you. I've seen these two names pop up. Ed, you may know them since you operate in the business, but Tina G is listed as a general manager on the second page. David Robertson is the engineering operations. I'm assuming that's for Atlantic OBX.
He's the guy operating the plant now. He's the guy operating the plant now.
Robertson.
Robert.
And he puts his name on all the reports and stuff. If you go through quickly, Wes, it goes into the operation agreement is between Atlantic OBX, several pages down. Keep going. Right there. That is, let's see, dated April 27th, 2022. Is just the operation agreement between the owner of the permit and the operator, which is Atlantic OBX. My question was, did you find out if it is still under emergency operation?
I think it's, I don't know. I don't understand emergency operation. That's a term I'm not familiar with. I mean, I've heard of it, but I think it's, when you don't have an operator, you have to get an emergency operator.
Right, and the state will appoint
Yes.
an emergency operator. If you go over, that's 4 pages. If you go to page 4 or at the end of that, keep going, you'll see a check pop up right there. That was rather than buy new equipment with that $10,500 fine, they pleaded it down to $3,087.50, which is basically a slap on the wrist, cost of doing business. But it didn't go to new operating equipment. It went to
They have
DEQ.
it.
No, I mean, there's the check right there.
Well, there is new equipment. The last inspection did show that there was some new
It
equipment.
does. I mean, they've made somewhat of an attempt.
You got a new fence around it.
Yeah, and a new fence around it. Okay, the rest of it, I think is probably way more than we need to be involved with. The LLC is trying to make its case through its attorney for a rate increase, and there's a lot of numbers in there that we shouldn't be involved with. Then if you go to number 10, Wes, in the folders, it would be the State of North Carolina Utilities Commission, Raleigh. That's an order finding the application of the change in franchisee. Right now, as far as we know, Neil Blinken from the Water Reclamation is the permittee, is the franchise owner, as far as we know. As of February 10th, 2023, it says he was is the owner. This is just an order finding that the application that those 55 pages represented was incomplete. At the very last sentence on that, it says, on July 25th of 2023, the public staff filed a letter stating that the sewer system has been abandoned by the current franchise holder, and the commission appointed an emergency operator. This is coming from the State of North Carolina Utilities Commission. The public staff further stated that due to the irregularities in the proceeding, the public staff recommends that the commission find the application is incomplete. The public staff states that it is actively working with counsel for the application to determine a way forward. And then if you finish up with this Utilities Commission business, the last thing that I want to speak to would be the 9th folder, number 9, which is dated July 25th, 2023. Everybody see that? Got it in front of them? That is a letter from Rita Coxton, who is a staff attorney for North Carolina Utilities Commission, to Shanta Dunston, who is the chief clerk of the North Carolina Utilities Commission, concerning the application for transfer of public utility franchise. I want to read this. An application seeking to transfer the certificate of public convenience and necessity to provide sewer utility service held by Gingite Woods Water Reclamation Authority, Inc., which Gingite, from Gingite to GWWTP LLC, GWWTP in parentheses, was filed in the above referenced docket on February 10th, 2023. The public staff has reviewed the filing and researched Gingite's history before the commission. The public staff's research suggests that the sewer system has been abandoned by the current franchise owner, as well as commission-appointed emergency operator. The public staff's research also revealed that the property on which the system is located has been sold multiple times without commission approval. GWWTP has stepped in and is currently operating the system to maintain service to the customers. Given the irregularities outlined above, a transfer proceeding is not appropriate at this time. The public staff therefore recommends that the commission find the application incomplete on its face. The public staff's investigation is ongoing, and the public staff is actively working with counsel for GWWTP to determine a path forward. Any comment on that situation? Anybody?
Wes, do you mind bringing up again the special use permit approval? Actually, it's the code.
The requirements for approval?
Yes.
There you go.
I think you would consider under A where it says in all other applicable ordinances as including the wastewater provisions of the code.
And item B, the town's land use plan, compatibility with the land use plan and with the area in which it is to be located.
I think C also, that the use will not materially endanger, will not endanger the public health and safety if located. And we have some interesting fecal results.
Well, I think that part of the challenge is that it's unclear whether or not the entity that authorized the wastewater has any authority to do that. I mean, they may own the real property under it, but they don't have the franchise for the actual facility, it doesn't seem.
Well, at this point, the franchise is in limbo.
Correct, but
And so they're going to renew the permit at the end of this month.
that,
I mean,
the
they're-
permit just gives rights for it to operate.
That's right.
There's, no one has authority to allow for increased tie-in to it. I mean, the record's completely unclear on that.
Well, I think we could sit up here and rehash what we've talked about over the last 3 meetings, and they've been extensive. I believe we've looked this thing over as well as we possibly could, and we've done our job. I'm going to read one thing I planned on reading at the end of this thing, but I think it would be appropriate now, and it's just brief, concerning the situation with the water quality and the franchise situation. Since assuming ownership of their wastewater treatment plant in March of 2017, the Gupta-managed LLC continues to operate it in a manner that is detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare, not only of our town citizens, but of all the surrounding communities that enjoy clean air and water quality. I think it is incumbent on our town to put as much pressure and resources as possible to force the Gupta-managed LLC that owns and operates this wastewater treatment plant into compliancy with the permit that it currently holds and owns. And I would go on and say, as set forth in Article 10, Chapter 36, 299, and Chapter 36, 300, the planning board may recommend to town council approval, conditional approval, or rejection of the special use permit and site plan. At this point, I move that we reject the special use permit 23-01 and accompanying site plan submitted by the applicant, Yingite LLC. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tony. Discussion.
We discussed it.
I just want to point out one more thing,
Yeah.
and I don't have a vote, obviously, but the rendering that was provided added a lot of clarity about the appearance of the site and also regarding the size and scale of the buildings. And there's nothing in the documents beyond what the building lot coverage is at 41,158 square feet. So multiplying that by 3, because they're 2 3-story buildings, that's a total of 123,474 square feet of building area. Now, technically, you can discount the parking level as not floor area, but it does contribute to the volume of the buildings. So the marketplace has 158,814 square feet. So we're only shy of that by 30,000 square feet. The square footage per acre of the marketplace is 8,766 square feet per acre. The square footage of this site, based on what they've proposed, is 17,740 square feet per acre. So you're essentially doubling the density of maybe the nearest benchmark within the town. And I think it's important to mention that and put that on the record.
Well, thank you. Any other discussion before we vote?
If I could just chime
Yeah,
in,
Lauren,
and
sorry.
I was delayed because I was in court today, but I was listening on Zoom. You were in the deliberations, you made this motion. I just want to clarify, your motion is based on the deliberations. Is there any other specifics that the board wanted to point out about the basis for the motion in terms of discussion before the vote? Generally, there is some discussion about, I agree with the motion or I disagree with the motion because of these things. It might be helpful for staff and the applicant to know what if there are any more specific. I mean, I think we've covered the Utilities Commission and the wastewater pretty well, but if there was anything else, I know that you went through the list of the, I think it was 27, because I sent it out too quick. I heard that on Zoom. If there was anything on there that I know you said, well, that was their answer. Was everyone satisfied? We'll get back to that. If there's anything in that list specifically that you felt also and was a basis for that, if you would note that, I think that might be helpful. But not to belabor this, and I certainly want to move it on to a vote, but just if there was anything else not in the specific deliberation section.
Yeah, I would say, Lauren, that, and I tried to bring this up when we were in closed session. You said save it for, open meeting, which I was fine to do. But, I think the major issues that face this entire project, it was one thing when we got started down this road, but I've certainly felt that the wastewater situation from a water quality standpoint, an environmental quality standpoint, kind of trumped what I initially felt like was the major issue. But I wrote down a good while ago, I dated it, it was in August of 23. The major issues that we're looking at were the 50-foot setback on the east end. And the applicant is not in favor of that. The wastewater, all phases, including the covenant issues, still very fuzzy to me. The traffic study requirement certainly is a major issue. Stormwater with all this fill and, material that's going to have to be dug out and filled. I just wonder what is the repercussion of doing all that. The use of landing trail, I think, has been answered by the applicant. Dominion Power, we still don't know if that 70-foot power line easement will be enforced by the power company. There's parking under it shown on the site plan right now. And then I had lastly the marina, which is obviously not allowed, so it's gone. But that was some of my concerns about this project.
Yeah, I think the land use plan comes into effect here also. Does this conform with Southern Shore's land use plan? Very skeptical, and it doesn't as far as from the initial look at it. And I know I belabored this before, but The covenant does not, it requires 50 or 18,000 gallons. Now, if you want to change the covenant in North Carolina, it's a 67% vote to change a covenant. That's the regulation in North Carolina. So I think one of the basic things is you have a covenant, which is kind of like a deed that says X. And you're saying, and your attorney said it says minimum, and there's no word minimum in here. I don't know where she came up with the word minimum. But I think that's an issue too. Straighten out your covenant. What is it? What is the requirements? Plus, I thought the 50-foot setback was really important. And also, as I said earlier, the words that were placed in 20-foot setback if feasible. You know, there more clarification concerning that. Definite clarification, not just.
I have a problem with item 5, before the planning, before the town can grant any special use permit. We must, if you go to item A takes care of the wastewater treatment issue, which has not been satisfied, in my opinion. Other applicable ordinances, that includes the wastewater treatment regulation that the town has, and the applicant does not meet it under those applicable ordinances. Item B, that the use as proposed would conform with the town's land use plan. I do not believe that it does, and will be compatible with the area in which it is located. It is not. It is a lower density residential area adjacent, and therefore the massing that Michael was alluding to, this huge bar of blocking the view from the road of the waterway is not compatible with that area. Breaking that project up into smaller pieces that doesn't look like a Comfort Inn, and so that there is light and air and views through there. The sizes of the buildings somehow reflect the adjacencies, which is residential, both in Martins Point and in Southern Shores Landing. I do not think that the project is compatible with the area in which it is located.
No, I agree. The density is just too much for that area. And obviously, we've addressed the wastewater. That was number one.
Ed?
I said my piece.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to kind of cover that and document that.
Okay.
Make sure we covered everything. We did spend a lot of time on the wastewater and utilities, so just wanted to kind of recap. It's been a couple meetings. So I think you have a first and a second, and
I'll read my motion one more time, and Tony's put the second in. I move that we reject special use permit 23-01 and accompanying site plan submitted by the applicant, Gengite LLC. That's the motion. Tony second.
I second again.
Yeah. All in favor of that motion, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, 5-0.
New business.
We have new, on the agenda, we have new business, which there is none. There's another sheet for public comment. No one signed up, but I would allow anyone that would wish to speak within that 3-minute limit. They can come forward and address the board. That would be fine. Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for looking out for our community, and reinforcing why we live here.
It's our job. Wes? Announcements?
Planning board comments first, or we can
Oh, I'm
go-
sorry, I'm sorry.
We can
Ready
go
to
back.
leave.
It doesn't matter. Yes, sir. The next regular meeting will be held on December 18th.
December 18th?
Is there anything scheduled for that time, Wes, that you know of?
We have a variance application, so I'm going to reach out to you all either individually or as a group to see if five of y'all can be at that meeting.
Anybody got any comments?
Comments.
Comments?
Thank y'all.
I have a comment.
I make a motion that we, I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you.